Welcome to the Average Joe Jiu-Jitsu podcast. My guest today is Gene Cook Jr., also known as the BJJ Moses. Gene is a black belt with the Carlson Gracie team. Gene is a three-time IBJJF Pan Am champ, a three-time IBJJF NOGI world champ, a six-time SJJIF world champ, and 11-time IBJJF American national champ. Gene owns and runs the Carlson Gracie Wine Country Jiu-Jitsu Academy located at 32828 Wolf Store Road in Temecula, California. Gene is the owner and operator of Moses Kimono Company, which can be located at moseskimonos.com. And Gene is a husband, a father, and a grandfather of 10. Welcome to the podcast, Gene. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Can you tell us about yourself? How did you get involved in martial arts, and particularly in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
That's a funny question because when I was about 14 years old, I was being bullied at school. And so my mother decided she was going to put me in Taekwondo. So I took Taekwondo for solid 2 years and got all the way to red belt before I quit. When I got my driver's license, I kind of lost interest because I had other priorities. But I ended up getting in a fight at school, and it was early in the morning and the grass was wet. And so I threw my favorite kick. I think it was a roundhouse kick to the head. And with the adrenaline pump and everything, it went a little bit higher than I expected. And my foot slipped. I landed on the ground, and immediately the guy jumped on top of me, and I was stuck on the ground until the teachers broke it up. So in my mind, I was thinking, this really doesn't work as good as I thought it would. So I completely lost interest. And then it was the end of 2010. I was 46 years old, and I was 50 pounds overweight. So I put it out on Facebook to my friends on Facebook, and I said, does anybody have a good exercise program for losing weight that is fun? I'm tired of just going to the gym and starving myself. And
right.
So one of my friends recommended Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I initially thought I was too old for it. I said, no, I'm too old for that. And he says, well, I'm older than you are, and I've been doing it for a while, so you should go try it. So he looked up a place, and he sent me down there. I went down there, and they were just opening. It was a Gracie Baja. They had, his name's Dennis. He lives in Alaska, and he had done all the research online. He sent me down there. They were just opening in Gracie Baja, no students yet. And I went to the first class, signed up, and I was hooked after that.
Wow. So you said you were 36 back then?
46.
46, I'm sorry. So, okay. Awesome. Yeah.
I'm 57 now. So that was...
I was trying to do the math really quick in my head, and it was like early in the morning. Yeah.
Early 2011. I joined early 2011. I thought about it for a while, and then I went down and signed up in 2011.
Yeah. I mean, I started jiu-jitsu when I was 43. I just turned 50 last week.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great.
Wow. So, who are your jiu-jitsu inspirations? Like, who did you try to emulate as you were coming up in the ranks, as you were training?
Well, my instructor, Thomas Cronin, my professor, is like a world-class competitor. And so I didn't really have to look very far to see really good jiu-jitsu. And the thing about him, he was always willing to help me. I told him that I wanted to compete. I told him that I didn't have any success in competition. He was winning everything from the time he was a white belt all the way through black belt. He still is. He won double gold at the Europeans last year. So he's a high level competitor at black belt, all the way through all the belts. But he worked with me, and we developed a game, and it became effective. But outside of my own academy where I was training with him, I would have to say Lucas Leitch, who is a checkmat black belt. I first saw him around 2012 when I traveled to Las Vegas for a tournament called the Grappler's Quest, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I saw him walk in. I had no idea who he was. Saw him walk in. He was wearing a tank top and some board shorts. Because at Grappler's Quest, you could compete without your shirt on. You could compete with in NOGI, you compete with a tank top on. So I was like, who is this guy, right? So I see this guy, and he's pulling half guard on everybody.
Mm.
So he would pull half guard and then he would sweep him and then he would finish him. Pull
Mm-hmm.
half guard, sweep him, finish him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching, he was doing the same half guard sweep on everybody. So I still didn't know who he was. A couple of years later, after I'm like fully invested in jiu-jitsu, I see a video of him on YouTube. So then I just started watching all of his material, and I decided, okay, I want to get really good at half guard. And so my instructor is good at half guard. And then I just built upon that by researching his half guard game. Now, different guys that are famous have different half guard games. Like Tom DeBlas's half guard game is different than Lucas Leitch, and Lachlan Giles' half guard game is different than both of those guys. So I haven't even got into those other half guard games. I've just kind of studied the Lucas Leitch dogfight style of
right.
half guard.
Yeah, Bernard Fiara is another guy who was really into the half guard and used it extensively, successfully, in his career. Yeah, I actually did study his. I'm still doing it. His style. I think it's pretty cool. Interesting, guys. That sort of goes into another question I was going to have, because I sort of caught on to that while I was researching for the interview, that you preferred or liked the half guard.
I love it.
So you preferred over full guard?
So from the time I was a blue belt, the Gracie Baja that I was a part of, that I signed up at, went out of business within the time frame of 2 years.
Okay.
So that's when I met my current professor, Professor Tom Cronin. And I was already playing close guard there at that time. So we kind of developed a close guard game together that was very effective all the way from blue belt through purple belt. And I use that close guard game in all my competitions. The problem is that there's a smaller pool of athletes that are competing over the age of 50.
Oh yeah.
So we all know each other by name.
Right.
Probably like 150 of us in the whole world.
Right.
So it's a very small demographic. And all these videos are available online through Flow Grappling. Like if you compete in one of the major tournaments, one of the major 4 IBJJF tournaments, they're going to post your videos online. So it wasn't very hard to figure out that I was going to pull a close guard and try to take the back, which is what I was doing.
Right.
So at that point, I decided, sometimes I would try to pull close guard, and that they figured out what I was doing. They were shutting it down, and I was ending up a lot of times in half guard. And my goal was to get back to close guard, but sometimes that's just not going to happen depending on how fast the guy's passing and skill level. But so I started at that point developing the half guard game, and then I used the half guard game all the way through brown belt. And I've competed twice as black belt, and I've used it in both black belt tournaments also. I haven't competed since COVID started in March of 2020, just because there hasn't been any tournaments for me to compete in that are suitable. But I did sign up for the Worlds coming up in November. So that'll be my first major tournament after the lockdowns.
Oh, awesome. No, good luck with that. Yeah, I'm the same. I actually do tend to use a lot of half guard, and I've decided I'm going to really develop a half guard, full guard kind of thing. But I always find myself in half guard. It's like my go-to position when I want to get out of trouble. Or once you get used to being in that bottom position and having the guy smashing you and putting his weight on you, and you get familiar with all the different scenarios, it becomes a lot of fun. My thing that I'm doing now is I'm playing half guard on my uncoordinated side. So as you know, most of us have a side that's more left or right, more coordinated. And because of certain injuries that I'm working around, I'm learning to play my half guard game on the opposite side, which is, it's stimulating my brain. It's challenging. And it's a new goal for me. So nice. The injury, was it the knee injury you were mentioning?
The knee's pretty good. The knee's about 95% right now, but the injury that is directly affecting the half guard is my opposite hip, my left hip. So as you know, the Lucas Leitch style half guard game is very dependent upon what's called the knee torque. You get on your side and you really use a lot of leg curl motion to control your opponent's leg. That's what's taking a toll on my hip. So I'm going to give it a rest and just work on the other side for a while. And what I noticed too is when I started working on the other side, I'm getting a different response from my training partners. Oh, okay. Because everybody usually prefers one side or the other to pass on, right? Or to defend. So it goes both ways. It's hard for me, but it's also a little more challenging for them if they're not used to passing on my left-hand side.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because like you said, you might have one side that you really prefer, but people they have the same side they prefer to try to get past you as well.
Yeah. So I noticed, for example, if I can just mention this one last thing, this last week I trained with a black belt that I've been training with for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And the same scenario happens every time. And I'm constantly trying to shut it down. So I played half guard on the other side. And we had a different role. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even realize it at the time. I went up to him after class. I said, hey, I realized our role was different today. Like the way you passed my half guard was different than you normally do. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, that's because you were playing on my left-hand side. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So right there, kind of a light bulb went off. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, this is going to be, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but there's going to be some value here. So mm-hmm. I'm going to continue working on it.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Actually, I'm going to try it too. When I go back this week, I'm going to try it. I'm going to start working on it.
Because you don't feel coordinated. You have to start like the other side, there's not a whole lot of thinking that goes on now because it's kind of all second nature. But now I'm like having to think, okay, what do I do with my foot? What do I do with my hand? What do I do with my other hand? Right. So kind of back to learning the game over again, which is not a bad thing.
No, I guess re-engages your brain and gets you thinking again. You probably will find new things that, are useful and you can put back in the other side too. And the hip thing's funny because I have recently started to feel like weird things in my hips. Nothing like extremely painful, but there's just moments where I'll get a little twinge or something. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? So,
yeah, it started out, I can tell you, this injury started out in 2017. Mm-hmm. And it kind of came on mild. It basically started out feeling like my hip was going to buckle. Mm-hmm. And then it would stop, feel fine. And then all of a sudden it felt like my hip was going to buckle again. Mm-hmm. I noticed when I play, if I just go to class and I play nothing but closed guard, I notice it kind of stretches my hip and my hip is fine. If I go to class and I'm teaching half guard, like I'm going to be teaching this week, or I'm playing a lot of half guard, the hip gets aggravated. And it just starts aching. So, but I'm working around it. It's not the end of the world.
Right. That's the way I look at it. I just try to strengthen it. I'm trying to find new exercises like with, I don't know, the hip circles and all those things to like try to just like prehab it, like, strengthen it up. That's my plan. I'm going to start because like I said, it just started for me. So I figure if I try to prehab it now and get ahead of it, that hopefully it won't really turn into much.
That's the way to do it. Yeah. I didn't see it coming. And by the time I just kept grinding it down. So it just,
I just kept smashing.
But that doesn't mean it won't come back.
Right. Awesome. So when did you receive your black belt in Jiu-Jitsu?
December of 2019.
Oh, okay. So it was previous. So how long did it take you totally? So 9 years.
Just barely under 9 years. Yeah.
Nice.
And barely under 9 years, basically training every day, sometimes twice a day, teaching. From the time I was purple belt, teaching like 5 days a week, teaching kids 5 days a week. So I was fully invested.
That's something I just want to talk to you about. I saw your post that you had on Instagram. You're with one of your small students. You had the gold medal. And that's when you were told the story about when you made the decision to finally open up your academy.
Yes.
Can you expand on that and tell us the back history of that?
Yeah, I have a friend who lives about 30 miles up the freeway, and the city is called Paris, California. Not to be confused with Paris, France. Those two are the exact opposites. Okay. And I had won at that 2015. I won the Pan Ams as a purple belt in the GI and the IBJJF Pan Ams. And my buddy, who I hadn't talked to for a while, he hit me up and he said, "Hey, he's a public school teacher, and he's been a Muay Thai coach in that area for as long as I've known, for over 20 years. His brother was a professional Muay Thai fighter, so he's got a lot of knowledge, and he's always had a Muay Thai program with kids, and because he has that network through the school, he sees these kids every day, and so he invites them, and a lot of them don't have anything to do, so it's a really good thing for them to get engaged in. So he wanted to meet with me. He convinced me to open a jiu-jitsu program there with him. So we opened a jiu-jitsu program there teaching the kids 2 days a week. And within 2 months, the program blew up to 30 kids.
Wow.
And so ranging in age from 4 years old up to 15 years old. And so we decided to add on an adult program. And the adult program, to this day, the adult program, I think they just resumed it. They took a little break. They just resumed it. The adult program and the kids program is still going. But the main point is that after about 1 year of training, so this is a group of students that had no experience whatsoever. After 1 year of training, I was able, with the help of another friend of mine who was coaching, his name was Donnie. He was also a purple belt. We were able to bring those kids to the point where we took 3 kids to a tournament. We took 2 adults, and one of the kids won a gold medal, and one of the adults won a gold medal. And so at that point, I knew that I had the ability as a coach to take people that didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu and bring them to a place where they could compete with other jiu-jitsu schools. Mm. And so I actually thought about moving to Hawaii and opening a jiu-jitsu school on the island of Maui.
Oh, really?
And so I was in communication with Carlson, Gracie, black belt out there, Christian Grandi. Mm. And they were asking him to open a school there. There was a gym that had mats on the floor. They didn't have anybody to teach. Mm. And I wanted to go because I've always dreamed about living on Maui. Mm. I've always dreamed, well, since not always, but more recently dreamed about owning my own school. It was like a perfect fit. Mm. The only problem was all my grandkids were in California.
Yeah.
And have a close relationship with my grandkids. So, and my professor, Tom, talked me out of it. He said, look, you have a long way to go as far as the learning curve, you know, you're on the right track, but we've still got a lot of stuff to teach you.
Right.
And stay here. And when the time comes, I'll help you open a school, which he did. Mm. And it turned out to be a better scenario because it was in Temecula where all my grandkids live.
Right.
So it just was a win-win for everybody.
That's awesome. Yeah. I still go back and forth. When I started jiu-jitsu, or about 6 months or a year after I started, I had the idea that I really wanted to open up an academy one day. And then the pandemic hit. And then I was like, I was sort of questioning whether, you know, it'd be a good idea. But then I was like, you know, just because something like that happens, it shouldn't dissuade you from doing something you really want to do. And so I'm back on that track in my head about how I want to open up an academy one day. Right. Currently I'm a purple belt. I still know I have a long way to go to get to my black belt. You know, I'm pretty self-aware and I'm self-critical and I know where I want to be. But I think my thing is like, I have competed in the past a lot, especially as white and blue belt. I hadn't got a chance to compete as a purple belt because of bracket issues and then the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I'm allowed to compete again soon when I feel comfortable about doing it, you know, with the obvious situation going on. But my thing is like, I know at this point, I'm never probably going to be the world champion of much of anything, but I really do enjoy teaching and I feel like I can do that well. My goal is to like become a really good coach. That's my thing. So when I read that story of yours, I was like, oh, that sounds like sort of like what's going on in my head.
Yeah. I would say that having a student, and I didn't realize this at the time, having a student that you taught jiu-jitsu to win a gold medal is just as gratifying as winning one yourself.
Right.
It might even be better because you get to go to the tournament all relaxed. You don't have the anxiety.
Right. No, yeah, I helped my former coach some tournaments, you know, when he asked me to, and it was a lot of fun to coach, and there was success. You know, a lot of guys won, and it was a lot of fun. So I did get a little taste of that. It's still there, and it's, you know, it's still my goal. You know, it's still my thing.
I didn't think I would ever win a world title either. Like the tournaments that I've won, mm-hmm. Never thought. If you asked me when I was a blue belt or even a brand new purple belt, I would say you're crazy. And I just kept working, and I realized that I wasn't the quickest learner, but I realized that if I just continued to practice, it would come together eventually. And then it started working. It started working in a way that surprised me. So
yeah, that's the thing. Is like even when I made the statement to you, I was thinking, God, you know, Gene's like, he's a pretty good competitor. He's, you know, won a lot of stuff. He's done really well. So maybe I'm being a little self-defeatist by saying what I said. So I felt a little self-conscious saying that to you, but it's just sometimes it's how I feel. And
I'll tell you what, the most, that's a normal feeling. And I would have felt that way too if you would have asked me as a brand new purple belt, or not a brand new purple belt, but a purple belt that hadn't had any competition experience at purple. Mm-hmm. Because purple belt is it's kind of an intimidating belt. Mm-hmm. Blue belt, okay. You know, these guys have been training less than 5 years for the most part. Most of them less than 4 years. Mm-hmm. The skill level, there's not that much of a discrepancy in the skill level. Mm-hmm. Purple belt, you could have a guy that's a purple belt and he's as good, he's tapping out black belts, you know?
Right.
So there's, it is kind of intimidating, but my professor, I competed at the Pan Am's 2015 and I went in like super confident and I lost my second match in my weight division by an advantage. I was so bummed out. Like, there's no way I should have, like, knowing what I know now, I'll never lose like that again.
Right.
But I did. The guy played smarter game than I did, and I lost. So I was really bummed out, really discouraged. And my instructor, Tom, told me, I want you to go sign up for the open class. Mm-hmm. And for those that may not know, the open class is a separate event for competitors that make the podium. So if you medal first, second, or third in IBJJF, you can go sign up for the open class. And now you're going to be competing against the guys who are the same age, the same belt, but no weight restriction. You could have a guy that weighs 140 pounds. You could have a guy that weighs 340 pounds. So my instructor came and says, I want you to go sign up for the open class. And I said, are you, like, what are you smoking? I'm not going to sign up. I can't vision. And you're going to have me go. Have you seen some of these guys? They're walking around 250 pounds, 275 pounds. Like, I'm done for today. He's like, no, I want you to go sign up for it. And it ended up winning the open division, blew my mind. And so because of that experience, it was really an eye opener. And I want to be very careful to never sell myself short. Right. Because jiu-jitsu, the beauty of jiu-jitsu, I mean, there's a lot of beautiful things about it, but one of the things that I find beautiful is the fact that things can turn around very quickly. In a moment's notice, you can go from losing bad to winning. Yeah. Until that buzzer goes off, you still have a chance. So you gotta, don't be overconfident. That's the opposite problem.
Yeah.
Don't be defeatist where you're, I'm no good, I don't have a chance, right? You got to find that medium where you're like, okay, I trust in my skill. Yeah, these guys are good, but I'm going to go out there and give them my best and see what happens.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. And those are great comments. I mean, and even looking back on it, I was thinking about it in my head. All of my competition submissions were all like that. They were all like except for the last one. The last one was 3 minutes, but most of them were like right at the end. You know, it was like I was basically losing, but then I was able to pull something out and submit it. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So one observation I'm going to ask you, because you could probably confirm it for me, because like I just said, I haven't had a chance to compete as a purple belt yet. My observation is that when I look at white or blue belts compete, it's very, in my experience, it's very aggressive and it's like a dog fight. But then I was watching the purple belts and it seemed like the intensity level like mellowed out. It was really just technical. It wasn't like a dogfight anymore. Is that accurate to say? Or
I would say that. Yep. Because I think the more skill you introduce to the match, the less you're dependent upon strength and speed and pure aggression. Pure aggression mixed with adrenaline will kill you within 60 seconds. Right. So these guys usually they're seasoned. They realize they need to conserve their energy. They're not just competing for that first match. They realize they might have 2 or 3 more matches, sometimes 4 matches. So there's a different mindset. It's a more mature mindset, I think. I mean, but things are changing. The blue belts are getting extremely technical these days. I was watching some blue belt matches thinking, my goodness, like these guys look like brown belts or,
right.
Yeah. So things are changing as I think the learning curve is speeding up because of technology and what's available. But you are right. It's a more relaxed game. It's a more technical game. But every once in a while, you're going to get some guy in your bracket that doesn't have that skill level. He came in as a wrestler. Maybe he got promoted quickly. And he's going to try to maul you. Yeah. So it does happen once in a while.
Yeah. I agree. And I agree about the technology level. I mean, even myself, I like to, I tend to watch a lot of instructionals and so forth, because it's like, it's almost like, I think sometimes a lot of jiu-jitsu instruction is basically self-taught or self.
You have to be, yeah. If you want to excel,
mm-hmm.
you're going to have to be a student. You can't just, you're not just going to check into your academy and not give a thought to jiu-jitsu between classes. No. And that's how I was pretty much. I mean, I would go home and think about what we did in class. But in 2011, there weren't YouTube videos about jiu-jitsu. They were just starting to happen. Mm-hmm. And like, if you pull up any YouTube video, look at how long it was published ago, right? 10 years is a long time for YouTube.
Right.
So there wasn't the YouTube saturation that we have now, which is good and bad, because the discerning student can differentiate between good material and bad material. Mm-hmm. The white belt or blue belt, maybe not so much.
Right.
So you have guys coming in all the time trying this garbage that they saw on YouTube. Most of the time it's very dangerous.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that there's 2 points I would make is that I think that as far as the student aspect of self-learning, because I think a coach can inspire you. A coach can teach you, obviously, they give you direction to go, but they can inspire you. But ultimately, it's your responsibility to learn it. Yes. It's your responsibility to develop your own game. And I think as far as who to look at, I think that there's a lot of stuff on Instagram and the social media that is really cool looking and it's flashy, but it probably wouldn't work in a real role. And I would say 100%. Yeah, exactly. And or it's the one thing they can do really well, but then the rest of the stuff is mediocre. But I personally, I just look at certain people. I go to people that I know are reputable and know what they're talking about, and those are the people that I'll study or follow. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on gi versus no gi jiu-jitsu? Do you have a preference, or do you prescribe to the theory that each has its own merits which complement the other, or do you see them as different arts?
The game is different for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're both equally important. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, at our school, we do every other day is gi, no gi. Mm-hmm. Because look, I always tell my students, look, you want to train in the gi because it's going to give you more options, and it's a more technical game. It's a game that's going to push the limits of your thinking, mm-hmm. your brain, mm-hmm. and your body. Mm-hmm. And as you get older, it's going to be something that you can play a little bit more, I think, effectively as an older person, mm-hmm. than the no gi game. If I'm going to go against a 25-year-old and you ask, do you want to go no gi or gi? I'll go, assuming the guy's in good cardio condition. If he's no gi, if his cardio sucks, then I'll go no gi with him. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But if he's in good shape, mm-hmm. I'd rather train in the gi with him. Mm-hmm. So I always tell my students, look, you need to train in the gi. If you only train no gi, and then you get in a self-defense situation where you have clothes on, mm-hmm. and the guy grabs a hold of your jacket, what are you going to do? Okay. You haven't been taught how to break grips. You haven't been taught how to control him, mm-hmm. when he grabs you. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to have anything. Mm-hmm. Those grips are going to cause serious problems for you, mm-hmm. especially if he pulls your jacket over your head or something like that. Mm-hmm. Likewise, if you're at the beach or the swimming pool, or your shirt comes off, or the other guy takes his shirt off, which happens a lot in a self-defense situation. Right. Now you don't have anything to grab on. Mm-hmm. Now what are you going to do? Right. So you have to have both. You have to have a no-gi game that relies on body grips. You have to have a gi game that relies on controlling the clothing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that both are equally important. Mm-hmm. If I could only do one, mm-hmm. above the other one, it would be gi. Okay. Because I can train gi and no-gi with gi. Mm-hmm. Right. Let's say, a lot of people, this is something that people don't consider. I have students all the time that are saying, oh, I have a no-gi tournament coming up. Mm-hmm. So I'm only going to come to the no-gi classes. No, why don't you train in the gi without the grips? Right. Let your partner have grips. You just don't get grips on the gi. Right. And it'll be like doing a no-gi class with ankle weights on. Right. Right. You're going to put an extra drag on your game, mm-hmm. that when that's not there. So there's a lot of different ways that you can train, but at the end of the day, I think both are important.
It makes a lot of sense. You're actually the second person I've heard that from. The last comment you made about training no gi with a gi on. That's really insightful. Do you also agree with the point about that gi is really good for learning defense, while the no gi is really good for submission because of the fact?
Yeah, that's good too, because so I'm much more confident of escaping submission attempts without the gi, obviously, especially when you get sweaty, everything slips. But yeah, your defense will get good with the gi because the guy has way more options to control you.
Yeah.
So if you can get out of back control, for example, or an arm bar or triangle with the gi on, you can probably get out of it without the gi.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my first 7 years was basically almost all gi. I barely ever got to do no gi. It was just a scheduling issue for me.
Yeah.
And now I've changed academies due to, again, a scheduling issue. And I train, the academy where I train is mainly no gi, but we do a little bit of gi. And so I'll do like 3 days of no gi and then anywhere from 1 to 3 days of gi per week. So I felt like, okay, well, it's also an opportunity for me to even myself out between the two, because I had hardly done any no gi. So I'm doing more no gi just for right now, just to try to like I said, to try to even myself out a little bit. But I did gi yesterday for open mile on Saturday and it was great. But yeah, I still do both. That's a great answer though.
Let me mention one thing that I just, which is kind of an interesting point that goes along with what we're talking about here. I, between white belt and purple belt, I had probably taken a total of about 5 no-gi classes.
Okay.
And my thinking, and I didn't like it because right away I realized it was different. No handles, right? I had no way to control this guy. And so I didn't like it. So when I got to purple belt, my instructor told me, hey, when you go to American Nationals, sign up for gi and no gi. I said, I don't go to no gi class.
Right.
He said, you'll do fine. And I said, no, I don't. Another case of him getting me to do something I didn't want to do. And then it turned out to be a success. So I ended up winning double gold in no gi, my first time out no gi American Nationals.
Wow.
So the reason, but my thinking, my line of thinking was this: I'm spending all this time and energy trying to learn the gi game. I'm the type of student that needs to stay focused kind of on one thing at a time rather than trying to introduce too many different options. And so my justification for not training no gi was always, I'll get to it later. I need to learn the gi game now. But once again, the two complement each other. And if you're proficient in the gi, you'll be fine without the gi. I even make it a point to go cross train at schools that don't wear the gi.
Right.
Because when you go to a school like that, whether it's 10th Planet or an MMA gym, these guys are experts without the gi. So if you really want to test your no-gi game, don't test it against somebody who only trains part-time no-gi. Test it against somebody who goes full-time no-gi.
Right.
And then you can get an idea where you're at.
Right. Yeah. I mean, actually, I did okay coming in. It wasn't like a bloodbath. So, and I had the same experience in my old academy too. And I did get to go once in a while to go to no-gi. It wasn't like I got cream. Okay. So yeah, but I totally agree with what you're saying. But at the same time, it's like there's certain things about that game, the lower body attack, the leg lock game, which I never really got to do very much of, heel hooks, all those things. I'm really interested in learning those things now, and that's what I'm sort of focusing on, just because it's something I never really got to do in the past. So it's been a lot of fun. But
things have changed rapidly in the last few years. I'd say in the last 3 years, things have changed rapidly concerning leg submissions. And I think they'll continue to change. And so I didn't really focus. I could show you how to do a heel hook or a toe hook, right? But I didn't focus on all the entries and the defense and all that stuff. And just until like 2 or 3 years ago. And then you have to be, if you're going to be an instructor, you have to be able to teach that. You have to know that stuff. It's part of the game. You can't send students into a tournament not knowing basic leg attacks.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And especially going back to even to the instructional thing we were talking about, there's so much information out there, people are going to know it. You have to know how to, at least if anything, to defend it. You don't get caught in it. But it's amazing how quick you can pick it up too. It actually doesn't, it's just like a puzzle. Yeah.
It's not that difficult.
No, it's not.
It's the entries. The entries are tricky part. You got to get in the right position to finish. And then as the game continues to evolve, the escapes will evolve. And so it's going to become more challenging, but that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And the way you can link them together from, a heel hook to a knee bar to a toe hold, in succession. It's really interesting. It's fun.
And what's funny, here's another thing that I found is that people that just focus on leg locks, sometimes it's to the demise of their upper body game.
Absolutely. I've seen that. Yes.
I've had guys that are really good at leg locks. If I pass their guard and get to mount.
Yep. There was a person I knew who I actually had cornered at tournaments. He was like deadly with the straight ankle lock, in gi and no-gi. And he was at a white belt level at the time. And he would go in and just submit people within anywhere from 10 seconds to, 30 seconds, whatever. But then if he didn't get that guy, there was one or two times where he didn't get it and the guy was able to fight out of it and pass his guard, and that was it. So, I remember saying to him, and another more seasoned person said to him is you have a great, straight ankle lock, but you need to develop the other stuff too, because when it doesn't work, you're sort of.
Yeah. I've had students like that before. And the other problem is that they often, they will take the bottom position. They'll be on top. They'll take the bottom position to get the straight foot lock.
Yeah.
Then if they don't get it, the guy scores 2 points.
2 points for the sweep. Yeah.
I'm like, don't do that.
Don't do that. Stop sweeping yourself. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I just had this conversation yesterday, so it's kind of funny.
That is funny. So there was one Instagram post, and you were talking about the 3 levels of knowledge. Would you expand on that? I thought that was really interesting.
So I didn't mention this, but I used to be a pastor.
Okay.
From the time I was involved in full-time ministry from the time I was about 32 years old till the time I was 2010. So I was until I was about 44, 45 years old. And so in my theological studies, we identify, and most disciplines identify these 3 different levels of knowledge. In the Latin, the first one is essentia, assent. I basically have a general knowledge of something. So I gave the triangle for an example. I might watch UFC, but I've never trained before. So I know what a triangle is in jiu-jitsu. I've seen a triangle. I've seen Anderson Silva triangle, Chael Sonnen. Yeah. Do you know what a triangle is? Yes, I know a triangle. Okay. And then there's a second level of knowledge, which is notitia, or knowledge, where we get the word knowledge, where I have a more intricate, I don't just know it in a cursory manner because I've seen it, but I know certain details about it. I've gone a little bit deeper. So now I don't just know what a triangle is. I can explain the mechanics of a triangle. And then there's a third level of knowledge where we, fiducia, where we have an intimate relationship with this technique, right? In the sense that I not only know what it is, I not only can tell you the details, but I can do it in my mind and I can do it in my body. I've become intimate with this submission because I do it on a regular basis with my opponents. And now, once I possess that knowledge, I'm in a position where I can teach it. Up until, if I just know what a triangle is, I shouldn't teach it. If I can tell you the mechanics, but I can never get it on anybody, probably shouldn't teach it either, unless I have a good reason why I can't get it on people. Like I'm, 90 years old, I'm Elio Gracie, or there's some physical limitation. And then there's this third level of knowledge, which I think is the best place to teach from, the experiential level of knowledge, where I've experienced this one-on-one. I mean, you could say the same 3 levels about my wife, right? There was the day that I saw her, I knew who she was. Then there was a day that I interacted with her. And there was a day that we got married and we became one as a couple. Right. Those are 3 different relationships, but all 3 of those different levels, I think, apply to any discipline that you're involved in. But especially I noticed with jiu-jitsu, because if you try to teach, let me give you a pragmatic example. If you try to teach a technique that you just know the details about, you haven't become intimate with it to the point that you know it yet. And then somebody asks you a question in the class. Well, it seems to me that if you just did this, it would stop it.
Mm-hmm.
He might be right.
Mm-hmm.
But unless I've actually experienced it in the different scenarios and the different ways that it happens, I'm really not in a position to answer that question.
Right.
Because it hasn't become mine yet. Mm-hmm. And so one thing I've noticed that with a technique that I'm very familiar with, somebody asks me a question, 9 out of 10 times, I'll be able to answer their question because I've seen that scenario before. Right. And so that was kind of the gist of that particular post that you're talking about.
That's interesting. And it also, at least for me, it got me to want to, it just sort of maybe open up my eyes about, or my brain about just learning technique in general. Like, when do I feel like I actually know this? And when am I still trying to figure it out? Yeah. That's actually really interesting. Yeah. Awesome.
So we used to use, I wasn't planning on bringing this, we used to use this in relationship to God, right? Mm-hmm. You might know who God is. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you've even read the Bible and you have some information about God, but you don't know him intimately. It's not until you get that third stage of where you know that you actually have a relationship. And so we confuse these different stages as, oh, I know. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe you do, maybe you don't. So
no, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, it's actually really good. What are your favorite types of training modalities for jiu-jitsu? Do you like to drill, flow drill, situational rolling, or free rolling, and why?
Actually, I think the best is all of the above, mixing them up. Mm-hmm. Just like if you talk to I notice you do a lot of strength and conditioning. Mm-hmm. One of the keys that I didn't know when I was a young man, we used to, and you probably experienced this too, back in the 80s, we used to, we would go to the gym and we would do 3 sets of bench press, 3 sets of incline press, 3 sets of dumbbell press, 3 sets of flies, right?
Yeah.
And that was the chest workout. And we would go on to back. We would do the same workout week in, week out, every 4th day, right? We didn't know any better. Now today, you get with a personal trainer who knows what he's doing. He's going to tell you, look, you have to constantly be changing things up so that your body doesn't adapt. So today when we do legs, we're doing this. But next week when we do legs, we're going to do this. And so we change the order, we change the intensity, we change the angles. I think that's important in jiu-jitsu too. So it's not enough just to learn the technique and spar. It's not enough just to drill. It's not enough just to do positional sparring or specific training with it, as it goes by different names. It's not enough just to do flow drilling. So I like to, this whole week, I've implemented each of those elements at different times in my students' training. If I had to pick one, which I think is the most important, it would be flow drilling. Not in the sense where you have 2 guys that are just flowing in this impromptu flowing. That's I'm looking for impromptu. In other words, there's no direction we're going. We're just kind of whatever happens. Right. I'm not talking about that. That's like flow rolling. Talking about where you have a drill that you've put together where maybe you start on your feet and you end in a submission. And so it's not a resistance drill, but you basically, you stand up, you break the guard, you pass the guard, you go to side control, you go to mount, and then you apply submission. And then your opponent does the same combination on you. You do this for either a time period or you knock out some reps. And what this does with very light resistance is it starts creating this muscle memory from these different scenarios. So now I find myself in closed guard. Oh, I'm just going to break it and I'm going to pass the way we do in drill number 2, for example. I've got on my, at my school, I've got a list of 26 drills on the wall that basically cover the general 8 positions of jiu-jitsu. They cover upper body, lower body, they cover defense, they cover offense, they cover guard passing, all the basic elements that you would need. And that takes us 26 weeks. So for example, we teach a new drill on Monday and Tuesday of each week. And by the end of the week, the students are drilling it on reps or with a timer. And then now we're building a repertoire of drills. And so, for example, yesterday, actually not yesterday, Friday morning's class. Okay, we're going to do drill number 2, drill number 3, number 4. And so we did each of those drills for 5 minutes. That's 15 minutes of warm up, just moving in jiu-jitsu movements throughout positions, through submissions, through transitions, through escapes. And when you get done, you're warmed up and your brain is stimulated. I think that's the best way to teach and to drill if I had to pick one. But I'm also going to implement. So then we finished that. I said, okay, now we're going to do specific training. Now we're going to start in close guard. And your goal is to hit one of the sweeps that's in the drill. And the goal for the other guy is not to get swept to pass the guard. So there we have resistance. And then the last 30 minutes, obviously we're obviously, because you don't know, but last 30 minutes, we usually just do nothing but spar. That's for a 90-minute class.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually saw that post. That's the reason I actually brought it up before I did the wall that has the list of the flows on it that you have in your academy.
Yeah, all this stuff, by the way, is on my Instagram account. Yeah. If including my half guard, I have a highlight reel from brown belt, half guard highlight reels on there too.
Okay. Yeah. I saw that too. I saw that. And I haven't had a chance to watch them, but he had 4 videos about closed guard. And I saved those into my save file so I can go back and study those later. Those look pretty good. And it was funny too, how you were comparing strength training to the jiu-jitsu thing. It's almost like if you go back to my last episode where I was interviewing Josh Shetledge, the BJJ strength coach, where we're talking about the conjugate method. And that encompasses everything basically in how to work out or what the important things. It's almost like applying the same concept to jiu-jitsu. So it sort of popped in my head while we were talking about
universal concept.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think so.
So I wanted to go back to a positional question, because this is just something that's been going through my dog is at my feet, by the way. That's why I'm looking down. Let me let him out of the room really quick, because I don't want to sit here and have to keep him quiet. Come on. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Young boxer, he's energetic. So going back to positional question that I've had this discussion with some of my friends, and I like to bounce this off people when I talk to them, more experienced people like yourself. Which do you prefer for jiu-jitsu, like competition, back control or mount?
If I had to choose, well, that's a very interesting question, because I was just having a conversation with one of my students yesterday where I've been focusing on mount.
Okay.
So I've been like every roll for probably the last 6 months. My goal is to get to mount and hold mount and submit. On guys that are, upper brown belts, black belts, some purple belts, is holding mount is just hard enough right there. Because they're really good at escaping. So I've been just refining my mount game. So if we could start in one of those positions, like if you asked me this 6 months ago, I probably would have said back control. Okay. Because the guy, back control is a really good position, because the guy can't see what I'm doing and I can see everything he's doing. And I'm in a really good position to choke him or armbar him, or there's so many options from back. I've got about 3 options from top mount position, but just focusing on those 3 options and holding mount, I'm getting better and better. I feel like I'm getting better and better every day. I have students that tell me like, I feel like tapping as soon as I get to mount. And part of that is because that's what my instructor did to me. So my instructor has a different mount than mine. He likes the high mount. I like a low mount, but the same thing. Once he got me in mount, there's nothing I could do. So I started thinking, you know what? I want people to feel what I'm feeling right now when I roll with them. Right. I started focusing on getting them out and holding it. And I'm having a lot of success. So in this tournament coming up, the two really go together though, because look, you can start in mount, but if he starts escaping, a lot of times there's a transition to the back there. Right. Depending on how you respond. So the two go hand in hand, but my goal probably for Masters Worlds is going to be to get into a mount position and finish my opponent from mount.
Nice. So you mentioned that you like a low mount. What are the reasons why you like a low mount?
I like to control the hips.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of flexibility in my groin, in my hamstrings. And so I can't really get a good base. You need to have a wide base and a high mount.
Right.
And so one of the things that my instructor does that I'm just not able to do is the way that he moves his hips and the way he has kind of like a modified technical mount when he's in that high mount, depending on how the guy's moving.
Right.
And I've just never been good at distributing my base like that because of restrictions of my hips. But the low mount, I feel that I can control his hips and smash him from there.
Nice.
So I like to have my hips low, so I'm controlling his hips, because his escape is going to start with his hips.
Right. Right. Okay, cool. What types of submissions do you favor from Mount?
3.
Mm-hmm.
Mount Triangle,
Uh-huh.
Americana, Ezekiel.
Okay.
And I do an Ezekiel without the gi also.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Nice. Yeah, I'm still like, my answer would have been back, just because I'm probably in the same position or the same mindset you were previously. And part of the argument, I didn't ask the question this way before because you're not an MMA fighter, but part of the argument we were having is back control is better for jiu-jitsu when there's no striking involved, and because there's more submission opportunity in some people's opinion, whereas mount would be more preferred for MMA because you have the striking component to it. But I thought, I still like to ask the question just on a basic jiu-jitsu level, because I wanted to see what the answer would be. And I do agree about the whole. Do you prefer, like, if you were a mount and they went to 3/4 mount, do you prefer like a chair sit to go to back control, or is there? Okay, all right.
That's exactly my transition.
Okay, yeah, that's mine too. Yeah.
But if the guy doesn't have a gi on, you better do it quick, because he's going to slip out the back door if you stay there too long. So you have to have some type of upper body control.
Right.
Usually I'm working on an Americana there to get him to turn on his side if I'm going to take the back. Okay. So I have control of at least one of his arms that prevents him from sliding out from underneath me.
Nice. Do you set the Americana up with the underhook underneath the neck first to get the grips and then transition?
No. If I'm in the low mount, yes.
Yes.
But if I want to finish the Americana from on top, yes. Okay. If I'm using because I use it 2 different ways. I'll use the Americana to take the back, or I'll actually try to finish it from on top.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So from my goal is to get the guy's arms over his head for the position. Once I get him here, and it's just a matter of being patient to finish the Americana.
Nice. Okay.
And it's kind of humiliating for the guy too. I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, always having your head up. Yeah, that's not a lot of fun. You feel like you can't defend, you can't get out, you can't do anything. You're mercy. Yep. Yeah, you're getting smothered by their chest and their clothing.
Yeah, and they're heavy on you. And
yeah, it's not a fun feeling. I also thought it was interesting what you said about the upper lower, the difference, like how your instructor uses an upper mount as opposed to a lower. Like I was just thinking, the name that popped in my head when you said upper mount was Gracie. Really used to do that, where you go upper mount.
Yeah, and he basically does the same type. He's really good at this cross collar choke.
Oh, he loves it. Yeah.
You might I'm talking about my instructor.
Oh, your instructor. Okay.
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
He lifts you up. He gets his hand in there so deep. He's already choking you with one hand before he even sets the other hand.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Can you share your thoughts on when you believe a student should start competing in jiu-jitsu?
I would say if they're competition worthy, right? Because not everybody that wants to compete should compete. I'm perfectly honest with my students. I tell them, look, there's a tournament coming up. If you want to sign up and you're not sure if you should compete, come talk to me. I'll give you my honest assessment. Because I don't want students. This has happened a few times over the years. It's probably happened 3 times. A student will go to a tournament either unprepared or they'll be presented a scenario that it's not a good scenario for their first or second competition. And then they have a bad experience at the tournament. It could be being a girl being paired up with a boy that's just too strong. It could be a small athlete being paired up with a bigger kid just because there's nobody in the bracket. It could be a kid that didn't have enough skill that just gets mauled in front of his family and his friends. So if somebody insists on competing and I don't think they're ready, I'll kind of warn them. If somebody is not ready, I'll tell them, look, not yet. I'm glad you want to compete, but let's work on some things. And usually people are okay with that. Yeah. But if they're ready, 6 months, I think is a good. I've got guys right now that are a little over 6 months in, they're just killing it. Right. I've got 4 white belts right now that are probably the best white belts that I've ever had since I've been doing this.
Awesome.
and they're all like under 28 years old.
Nice.
They're just killing it everywhere they go. So I'm about to have a meeting with these 4 guys and try to get a long-term commitment on putting together a real competition team.
Oh, that'd be great.
Where we start getting serious about winning some major titles.
That'd be awesome. Well, good luck with that. I hope you find success in that. Do these 4 guys also, they train quite frequently, obviously?
Most of them train twice a day
and self-study and everything. Yeah, that's it.
And I'm teaching them basic. So I don't hold anything back from my students. I teach them everything.
Yeah.
I teach my students my game. I teach them how to beat me at my game. And they don't beat me in my game very often. But these 4 guys, within the next couple, they're already giving me some problems. But in the next couple of years, yeah, I'll be 60 years old, and it'll be time to say, okay, you guys are going to have to carry the mantle for me here.
Right. I'll coach. You guys go.
Start living with you guys now.
Yeah. No, yeah. I got to say, there's many a time, and it's probably every person who's older who does jiu-jitsu probably says this, but I always wish that I had been able to start in my early 20s, and not instead of my early 40s. I don't think even jiu-jitsu was even around here in this area, like where I lived back then.
There was this. Yeah, it was there in San Diego. San Diego was one of the first places that the Brazilians came to, and I'm from San Diego. But I've thought about that question many times, but I think about how many things I started when I was in my 20s and 30s that I quit.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah.
I was into CrossFit for a while. I was into mountain biking. I was into weightlifting. I was into surfing. I was into all these different skiing, snowboarding. This goes on.
Right.
When I found jiu-jitsu, I was intrigued by it right away, but I also realized a difference between jiu-jitsu and these other sports. And that is, if you quit, you might be able to surf for 2 or 3 years, take a year off and go back and you're fine. It's not how jiu-jitsu works.
Right.
Especially if you're a senior athlete, you take a month off and you go back and you're going to be dying on the mat. So one thing that once I put my shoulder to the plow, never look back. The only time I'm not training is if I am injured, and I can't. Even most of the time I'm training with an injury. So
yeah, I find the same experience, in life, or, same thing for my 20s or 30s. I mean, I did things for extended periods of time, but nothing like I've done with jiu-jitsu for that.
Yeah, me neither. I've never been committed to something as deep as.
Yeah. Nothing where I was training, doing something 5 days a week consistently for that long,
I asked about getting a black belt first class.
Oh, I've always had that. I have always had that goal. I still have that goal. I mean, I'm like, like I said, I started when I was 43. My initial goal was to have my black belt by the time I was 50, because I've done other martial arts. And so I mistakenly came into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu thinking, well, I have this, I did Japanese Jiu-Jitsu for almost 18 years. And I did Shotokan, and I did Shotokan and Shirinji for a decade before that, So, when I started that in high school and after junior high and after, and so I thought going into jiu-jitsu, I've got all this experience, I should do okay, kind of thing. I had no idea. I got my lunch money taken big time. White belts, everybody just smashing me. And so it was great because it was humbling, but at the same time, but like I said, my point of the comment is that I thought, I'm going to try my black belt by the time I'm 50. I understand it usually takes 10 years. Maybe I can get ahead of the curve kind of thing. I'm 50 years old and I'm just purple belt. So I still got a long way to go. So it's just to me, like just a never ending journey. It's just, don't worry about that as much, but just get on each day and just get better.
You're still ahead of me though. I was 50 years old. I was a blue belt. So okay. You're still ahead of me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, purple belt's been the hardest belt by far. That has been the hardest belt. It's just, some days are really good. Some days are horrible. It just feels like it's this big gap, but we'll see what happens, but it's still my goal. My goal is still to get my black belt,
Here's the problem with purple belt. Every white and blue belt would love to tap out a purple belt. Every brown and black belt should tap out a purple belt.
Right.
So you're sandwiched between 2 different groups that want nothing more than to murder you on the mat. And
I never thought about it like that, but that's very accurate. That is, yes.
So I think, nobody wants to lose in training, right? Nobody wants to get tapped. We talk about not having ego, but look, at the end of the day, we're here to play a game, and the game's not fun when you lose. So we're competitive as men. We like to tap each other out. We don't like to get tapped, but I think you have to be okay with getting tapped.
Yeah.
Even if it's a lower belt. I had a lower belt tap me out this last week, and I didn't give it a second thought, except for just now. We slapped hands and we kept going. I said, good job. First time he's ever caught me, one of my students, and he actually caught me with a technique that he caught me with a bow and arrow, which is like my kind of my specialty tech. And I just taught him the bow and arrow again that week, probably for the 5th or 6th time since he's been training with me over the years. And he made some adjustments and I was unable to escape. Normally I can escape, but last time I escaped, I told him, look, I'm escaping because of this. And he made that adjustment and I knew it as soon as he locked in. I was like, stuck. Wow. And so I tapped and then we just carried on. Everything's fine. And I'm sure he felt good and we just kept going. So nice. You got to be okay with training. And I tell my students, I said, look, imagine a pitcher, a professional pitcher who goes out to the mound and he expects to strike out every single batter. And then when he doesn't strike, one guy gets a hit off him, or let's say a home run. One guy hits a home run out of nowhere and he goes home and cries to his wife. She's like, yeah, but you're striking everybody else out. It doesn't matter. He got a hit off me. It's ridiculous the way we think and the pressure we put on ourselves right. But if you look at if you're trying new things, if your game is progressing and you have to put yourself in bad positions to get these new things. Like, first time you try playing lasso guard, somebody's going to pass your guard. First time you're playing De La Hiva, people pass your guard. You got to get through that barrier. Now you're in a bad position. Why? Because he's better than you. No, you're trying something new. You put yourself in a vulnerable position and deal with it, move on. But if you're going to progress, this is a necessary part. You have to put yourself in bad positions and you have to be vulnerable. If you're just going to stay with your comfort zone, that's fine. Continue to tap everybody out, but your game won't progress. Yeah. That is very true. Could you give us any? Look, you can't be a one-trick pony if you're going to be a coach. No, absolutely not. You have to know a full round of game. You have to have a full system. You have to be there. You have to feel it. You have to have experienced it. If you're going to be the best asset for your student, those elements are very important. Rather than just theory. Absolutely. Could you? I caught something during that part of the answer about the bow and arrow, that you specialize in the bow and arrow choke. Are there any tips you could give, top secret type, not top secret, but the secret squirrel, So I'll just share with you the adjustment that this student made. Okay. My standard bow and arrow defense is going to be to grab a sleeve, the arm that's choking you, and to grab the material behind the tricep, right? And I'm going to try to get my shoulder on the mat. And I'm going to try to get my head out of that hole. Yes. So it's all contingent upon the position of his elbow. If his elbow is touching the base of my neck, that's the elbow that's choking me, it's going to be way deeper to get my head out. So there's ways that I can adjust that angle to try to make that elbow come up to the top of my head. However, if the guy that's doing the bow and arrow switches from a pant grip, I pull the pant toward me and I underhook the leg. Okay. And now once I underhook the leg, now I lean into the leg and my elbow automatically is lower behind and he cannot escape through that standard slipping out of the head. And so for me, once I get everything set in, I'll grab that pant and I'll switch to an underhook on the leg. And now I'm just going to bury my elbow and bow and arrow him until he taps. That's excellent. I could totally catch that the way you were showing it. That's awesome. What's your favorite entry into bow and arrow? I have the same entry every time. Okay. I try to set the thumb in the choke in the transition of the back take. Okay. So this is kind of fresh in my mind because I just taught it on Wednesday. I told my students, look, don't start setting the choke after you get to back control with your seatbelt. That's too much time to think. In the transition to the back take, Say, for example, if you're in technical mount, you're doing the chair sit that you talked about. As I do the chair sit, I'm opening the gi, I'm feeding my thumb so that when we arrive in the back position, the thumb is already set.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just a matter is that it's just a question, am I under his jaw or not?
Right.
If I'm under his jaw, then we're good to go to the next step. If we're not, then I need to get it under his jaw. And then once I get under his jaw, we're good to go to the next step. But I think a key detail is obviously in all of jiu-jitsu is staying slightly ahead of your opponent. And so one of the ways that I'm sneaky about that is I will I'll set the choke in the transition to the back take.
That's excellent too. Those are two really good points. And I think next Saturday I'll be hunting bow and arrow chokes.
There you go.
So people from my academy are actually watching this, which I don't know if they are.
I'll tell you, I might, maybe I'll post a video of it.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. If you would post a video, that'd be excellent. Yeah.
Okay. I'll post a video.
I'll be all over that.
I'll post a video about setting the choke in the transition.
Okay, great.
Because that's something I wasn't taught. That's just something I started developing myself. Some things, as you get more advanced, you're going to start developing yourself. You're like, oh, I just started doing that. That's not something I was taught. Right. Which always, I think, has a little bit more significant, a little bit more nostalgia. Like you're proud of, oh, yeah, I do this because this is what works for me. So. Right.
And that's an excellent answer. Excellent. So this next question is one close to my heart as well, because I did the same thing in one sense. But in 2008, you were overweight. And what was your journey to reach your current level of conditioning, body composition, and health that you display now?
So when I first started jiu-jitsu, I didn't start till 2011. So I was overweight from 2008 to 2011. And I started jiu-jitsu to get in shape, to learn it, but mainly to get in shape. And I started losing, I think I lost 10 pounds the first week and a half. Probably just a combination of water weight and donut oil, because I was eating a lot of donuts back then. I love donuts, by the way. And so it probably took me about 2 years to get to my optimum weight, which is, I'm a little bit light right now. For some reason, I dropped down to 180. I'm not sure why. It might have been because I was traveling and not eating right, but I like to be around 185, 190. Okay. And that's down from 230. 230 was my max weight. I'm about 6 feet tall now. I was 6'1", but I'm shrinking. Right. And so when I started jiu-jitsu, I realized the biggest hurdle for me was my cardio. Right. So I started implementing some extracurricular cardio activity. Just running sprints up a hill, up an incline, running up an incline, walking down, running up an incline, walking down. And I would, I was mainly doing that so that I would be able to last 2 5-minute rounds at the end of class. Okay. And then I noticed weight started coming off then. After about 1 year of jiu-jitsu, I came down to about 205. And I wasn't breaking 205. And so I figured, oh, 205 kind of must be my weight, my plateau weight where I'm at. And a friend of mine said, hey, have you ever heard of this paleo diet? Like back in 2012. Have you ever heard of this paleo diet? And I said, no, what is it? He says, well, you don't eat processed foods. So you only eat like natural foods, nothing processed, nothing baked or cooked. You don't eat any sugar. So no bread, no flour, nothing that's processed, right? Vegetables, meats, nuts, fruit, things like that. So I tried that diet where they deliver the food to your house. The first week I dropped 10 pounds. Yep. Boom, 195. So I'm like, wow. So then I kind of only dropped down to, after about 2 or 3 months, maybe 190. So it was time to get off it because I didn't really care for the food that much. I got off it. I never went back up. I just stayed at 195. So I was at 195 for a long time, up until about the last year. Now my weight has come down a little bit more. And I'm not 100% sure why. I'm going to be getting a blood panel next week, just to make sure everything's kosher. Right. But I don't have that much of an appetite. And I also started doing some strength and mobility training 3 weeks ago because I realized I was getting light. I felt a little weaker. Right. So I wanted to stimulate my appetite a little bit more. So I've been implementing three hours a week of strength and mobility training.
I was going to ask you about that too. It's funny too. I mean, it's similar to my situation. I was 240 when I started dropping weight, and I did the paleo diet as well. That's how I did it. I got down to like 190 within 6 months.
Nice.
Yeah.
Doesn't take long.
Yeah. And I still sort of stick to it. I was going to ask you, like, as you said, you didn't like the foods. I was going to ask you what you're eating now, but I basically eat meat and vegetables and fruits, but I also do eat rice, and I eat oatmeal, and I eat, some carbohydrate stuff that they wouldn't be paleo. And I do like beer too. So I drink that,
So do I.
Yeah. Hey, you got to enjoy life.
Like I had 2 last night with my dinner. That's enough.
Yeah. That's what I did. Yeah.
But I pretty much eat anything. Like I try to stay away from the sugar stuff now,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll indulge myself once in a while, but I can pretty much, my metabolism is now working again like it was when I was in high school with the training. And so I have a very fast metabolism. So I can pretty much eat whatever I want.
Right.
If I have to drop a few pounds, it's never an issue for me.
Yeah.
But I mainly eat chicken and steak as for my protein source, and then protein drinks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been into fruits and vegetables, but I recently started consuming not baked potatoes, sweet potatoes for energy, for carbs. And that's about it. I like potatoes.
Yeah.
I like chicken. I like fish. I like steak. So those are my protein staples.
Yeah, it sounds about the same as mine. Yeah, I'm thinking of doing the sweet potato thing again and knocking out the oatmeal. Sometimes it does okay for me. Sometimes it feels like a rock in my stomach, so it doesn't quite fit. But that's interesting. Now, strength and conditioning. You said you started to do 3 days a week now. You mentioned in the past you had weightlifted in the past.
Yeah. So back along with my jiu-jitsu program, I should probably mention my first instructor. When I told him I wanted to compete, Professor Pedro, he had me he said, look, he was like a national judo competitor for Portugal when he was a teenager. So he had kind of like this strong strength and conditioning work ethic. And so we spent a whole year doing nothing but strength and conditioning, just blasting my cardio and blasting my body. And at the end of 1 year, I said, look, I can't do this. This is, I just want to focus on jiu-jitsu. It was about that time that he actually moved on and moved to another academy. So it's at that time also that the school went out of business. And then I went and found Tom. And I told Tom, and I said, what would you recommend for my cardio? He said, what do you mean? And I said, well, like to make me last longer during sparring. And he said, more sparring. And I said, no, like what to supplement my sparring? He said, more sparring. I said, so, just sparring? He goes, just sparring. He goes, think about it. If you want to get good at jogging, what do? You jog more, right? If you want to develop your cardio for jogging, you jog. If you can develop your cardio for sprinting, what are you going to do? You're going to sprint. Just if you want to develop your cardio for swimming, you swim. Whatever you want to do that, and then your body will adapt to it. And so he was right. And so I started thinking, I started seeing these really skinny guys who are like the top black belt athletes. I'm not talking about Gordon Ryan or Andre Galbauer.
Right.
I'm talking about guys like the Meow brothers. Right. Guys like Michael Musumeci. Just people who they're not known for their muscle mass. They're known for the technique. So I started thinking, and some of the best guys in the gym were skinny, tall, lanky guys that didn't lift weights. And so I came to the conclusion, maybe I just need to spend my time and energy focusing on getting technical rather than lifting. And so from 2000, in the last 2 years, I've done very little strength and conditioning. I would do it to prepare for a tournament. I kind of had a mental edge, I think. But then I kind of, I stopped. But what I've noticed in the last 2 years, I've noticed that I've gotten physically weaker. Right. My legs, my muscle mass, because of my age, my muscle mass is deteriorating. Or not really deteriorating, but I'm atrophying. I can feel my body atrophy, right? the whole body. Even though there's certain muscle groups that I use a lot in jiu-jitsu, those are fine. My pulling stuff, you know, my grips, all that stuff's fine. It's the stuff I'm not using so much. So I have a student who owns a CrossFit gym. And he's one of the original CrossFitters in this area. So he's been doing it for, everybody knows him. He's won CrossFit competitions. He's well known, and he is very knowledgeable when it comes to strength and mobility. So we made a deal, and every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, I give him a 1 hour private session. We roll for 3 rounds in addition to instruction, and then when we're done, we go over to his gym and we do about 1 hour of strength and mobility training for me. That's perfect. Still in the initial phase because we just completed our 3rd week. So this coming week will be our 4th week, but I can already feel a difference in the way my body's feeling. We're trying to rehab my hip. We're trying to strengthen my knee. And we're trying to strengthen my lower back. All the places that I'm physically weak, we're focusing on. And I can already see, I can feel a difference just walking around, but I can already feel a difference in my rolls. It's fun. After 2.5 weeks of doing stuff that I normally do, I'm feeling a difference.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the old adage.
That's where I'm at now.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to the old adage of use it or lose it. You know,
if for some reason you just locked up.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Hold on a second, guys. Connection got screwed up a little bit. There it is. Okay, now you're back. Okay, now you're back. So yeah, so that adage of use it or lose it. And that's why I still really, I mean, I only lift weights like twice a week now, you know, 1.5, 2 times a week. When I'm actually training jiu-jitsu, like, you know, 5 days a week, I just can't do any more than that. You know, it can't recover from it.
That's the other problem.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that, but that's the other problem I was facing. I was not killing myself, but I was just like running myself down and doing both. And I just realized like I need to focus on jiu-jitsu so I have the strength and energy to train. But now it's a perfect scenario because I'm able to fit into my schedule, and he understands my job, and he understands that I need to leave there with some gas in the tank still. You know, I'm going to come back and teach 2 more classes that day. Right. It's a good situation for both of us.
That's a great situation. Yeah, that's awesome. You actually basically have
and he's an athlete already. So me investing this time with him, he's on the fast learning curve.
Oh yeah, he'll be
he'll be representing my school before long, and he'll probably be the 5th addition to my white belt competition team.
Yeah, he's going to be a killer.
Strong. Actually, I posted a video of me and him rolling. He's the guy that I was showing a half guard sweep on.
Yeah.
New technique where I block the hip with stronger guys that turn back into me. So you can see he's yoked.
That's excellent. It's excellent. Have you or do you have any tips on the recovery factor? You know, if you're an older athlete like us and you're training, you know, 5 or so days a week, and you're trying to do some weights like 2 or 3 days a week, you know, are there any things that you really focus on for recovery?
Yeah, I would. First of all, you got to be smart the way you approach your sparring sessions. And in the past, I haven't been so smart. So it depends on which room I'm in. If I'm in my school, the same principle carries over. I go train at my professor's academy once a week, and all the black belts want to spar with me when I go there. So after about 3 rounds back to back, I'm dead.
Yeah.
So what I've started doing is, and I heard this from another guy on YouTube that's in his mid-50s. I forgot what his name is, but anyways, he's from Roy Dean Academy.
Oh, it's Rick Ellis.
Yes,
Rick Ellis. I had an interview with him. I still got to try to get that thing edited.
So one thing that he said that I latched onto was when he spars, he basically goes hard round, easy round, hard round, easy round. And so what I'll do is I'll grab a high level guy or he'll grab me. And then immediately I'll grab a low level guy. And I use that round as kind of like a resting round. I'm still moving, I'm still breathing, I'm still defending, obviously. I'm not gonna let this low level guy kill me. But I don't have to I don't have to be operating at such an intense level.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I'll go back and then I'll go with a really skilled guy that's going to make me work.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that combination every other round actually works very well.
Yeah, I've experienced with something similar to that too, and it does work really well. And Rick's got really good information. His Artist Skill YouTube channel, it's pretty good. It's got some good stuff on there.
If in case you're wondering why I keep looking over here, I have 2 monitors set up. The camera's over here.
I'm not worried about it. Yeah, no.
I have my glasses. This one is like a full screen. So
no, I do the same thing, right, Mike? I'm like, if you see me moving, it's because I'm like looking up. I notice I'm on the left side of the frame, and I'm like, why am I over there? And I want to move over. Yeah, same thing. So,
and 2 more things.
Uh-huh.
Get plenty of rest.
Yes.
Like I try to take a nap every day.
Right.
Even if it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 1 hour, maybe if I'm lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I try to take a nap every day. Even if it's just laying there still and just relaxing. You know, you can't go to sleep, just laying there still, focusing on your breathing, just relaxing. I feel that gives me an edge also. And then I drink BCAs between training sessions. So I try to stay hydrated by drinking BCAs, branched chain amino acids with electrolytes.
Yeah, good, awesome. Do you have any other interests or hobbies outside of martial arts or jiu-jitsu?
Nope. No, actually, I got to stay focused, right? Because I get off on too many tangents. I just started my, while we were locked down, I decided I was going to push forward with my gi company.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Couple of years, yeah. For the past couple of years, I've been manufacturing a small quantity of gis for me, my students, and my gis have a unique design elements to them as far as fashion goes, as far as aesthetics, how they look. And so I have people telling me everywhere I go, like, hey, oh, I like that gi. Where did you get that? And so I decided to put them out there. So that's not a hobby per se, but it's kind of what I'm doing in my spare time now.
Well, the reason I asked, I saw was one of your videos, you have like 3 electric guitars on your wall in your office.
Those are PlayStation guitars.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, PlayStation's a hobby.
If I turn this around here, let's see here. I've got them on this wall. Oops.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those look familiar. Nice to have one of those too.
That's my connection. Hold on a second.
All right.
There we go. We're back.
Okay. You never left. It was very brief.
Okay. There I am. All right. So yeah, so I have a little podcast studio set up here. And one of my hobbies is podcasting, although I haven't been able to do it much lately. I currently don't have a podcast. It's putting out regular material. But I have some ideas about interviewing like legends of the sport. And I've already got one scheduled with a guy who a lot of people don't know who he is. His name is Nelson Montero. He's one of the first Brazilians to arrive in San Diego and ultimately responsible for taking Jiu-Jitsu to Abu Dhabi because he introduced Jiu-Jitsu to one of the key players. If I'm not mistaken, he was a prince from Saudi Arabia. So, but I'll get the full scoop from him, and then I'll be posting that. So I kind of have this new concept that I'm thinking about, where I go on the road and train at different locations, and then interview the instructor afterwards, like high-level, well-known guys. Because I recently took a 3-week vacation and literally trained almost every day that I was on vacation at different places.
That's awesome.
So I'm thinking, hey, you know, I could video the trip there. I could video the rolling sessions, and I could interview the guy afterwards. And I think it would be good content.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's almost like what Bitter Jake used to do.
Yes.
Back in the day. Yeah. Well, I will for sure be a viewer. I will check that out. Absolutely.
I used to have a podcast when I was a pastor that was very popular. And there's a guy, I took everything down. When I took the website down inadvertently, but there's a guy that recently started posting all the audio again. If you search for me, the name of the show was The Narrow Mind. Okay. And I literally had like 500 episodes. I was like a pioneer. A lot of people don't know this. I was a pioneer of podcasting. I started podcasting in 2003.
Wow.
And I put out between 2003 and about 2010, I put out literally like 500 shows.
Wow.
With like famous people within the Christian community. So, and different topics, a wide variety of topics.
Nice. Well, I'd love to see that though. If you start doing that, I will for sure be a viewer.
Well, I'll keep you posted. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let me know. Awesome.
Like I said, I have the first one. I have one scheduled, and I'm planning on using it as a kind of a trailer or a test, a pilot. Pilot.
Yeah.
And see how it goes. And who knows, maybe I can sell it to Flow Grappling or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I wish you all the luck in the world with that. You know, it sounds like a great opportunity for you. And you're giving me ideas about when I can actually retire from my job later on. Maybe I'll be trying to do the same thing. That's awesome. So, Gene, thank you very much for coming on the podcast and speaking with me today. I think people can, if they want to reach you, you're on Instagram at BJJ Moses. Your website is TemeculaJiu-Jitsu.com, and Temecula
That's correct.
is one word. And you can be reached by email at Carlson Gracie Wine Country at gmail.com.
That's correct.
Okay. And you don't use Facebook as a communication device?
No, I just, I have to have it because we have an admin page for our school that gets a lot of traffic. Mm-hmm. I don't have any friends on Facebook. I got a Facebook. I like Instagram better, less drama, you know.
Right.
Less opinions.
Yes. I am not a big Facebook user myself, but yeah. I'm the same way.
Time for both. Posting a picture with a little one sentence description. I can do that all day long. So
yeah, it's awesome. It's good stuff. And like, I think as guys, we're more visual anyway. So, you know, it's like, whatever.
I've got a lot of my half guard game on there too. If you go over to IGTV, there's a series called Half Guard for the Elderly.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of a joke. The name is kind of a joke, tongue in cheek.
Right.
But I posted quite a few different half guard sweeps there.
Sweet. I will be sure to go out there and look at that. I go over there and look at that. Yeah. I'm trying to develop more. I'm having like the idea of like trying to develop a left, right, straight up, you know, kind of concept for most of the things I do, you know, not having just this one option you rely on, but having, you know, like follow-ups in different directions. And
so left, right, straight up, and backward.
There you go. Backward. Yeah.
So you might even be able to throw forward in there, but if you bump them in the butt, you drive them forward. But the most I've got 4 directions: left, right, up, and backward, depending on what he's doing. So every time I go for one of those techniques, it gives me an option for one of the other options.
Nice.
Inadvertently, no matter what. Now, maybe he's quick at shutting it down, but that's another story.
Right. All right. Great. Well, thanks, Gene. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day, and I hope you'll come back on the podcast at a later date. Maybe we can have a second discussion.
I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Please send me a link and I'll post it myself.
I will absolutely send it to you.
Okay. We'll see you.
Thank you. All right. Have a great day.
You too.